We've got some very interesting news to take a look at here today as two of the New York Rangers' truly top prospects in Gabe Perreault and Drew Fortescue. And you could argue, Gabe is the top forward prospect and Drew is the top defense prospect currently in this system for this New York Rangers team. And with that being said, they unfortunately, them and their Boston College team ended up losing in the second round of the hockey NCAA tournament there, pretty much, the hockey version of March Madness. They lost in the second round there, unfortunately, to David Carl, the kind of top, coaching prospect, you could say, in all of college hockey, to his, Denver team there, which is a very good program, but unfortunately, and the Boston College team goes out there in the second round after beating Bentley in the first round, which is definitely not what was quite expected of that team there. Boston College, and Gabe Perreault and Drew Fortescue, they were a part of something pretty special there with Boston College, and absolutely, powerhouse of a team. So it is a little disappointing to see them go out in the second round there to Denver, but at least there is, a bright side of this there where they can now sign their entry-level contracts and potentially play some actual kind of pro hockey games throughout the rest of this season, which is not a bad thing at all for these, young prospects who are obviously still developing, still very, very young, and are guys who the Rangers really need to hit on here and really need to be, make these guys, become some actual kind of key players going forward for this team. A guy like Gabe Perreault, he could definitely be a top six forward or even a top line kind of guy with some elite offensive talent there. He definitely could be an elite player one day. Then you've got Drew Fortescue, who I think could truly be a potential kind of really good top four caliber defenseman for years and years to come at the NHL level. And I did want to mention before we really get into the video here that if I do sound a little different here, or maybe these guys have actually officially signed their entry-level contracts, after this video is made, because right now I am having to record this video in a different area than normal because my power's been out for the last day or so. So a little unfortunate there. Obviously, can't record this video in my normal spot, which is definitely disappointing. So I may sound a little off here. And like I said, the news could change a little bit here with these guys officially signing their deals, but it is highly expected as of right now that both these players will probably sign their deals, especially Gabe Perreault, which I pretty much 100% guarantee it. I would say for Drew Fortescue, a 95% chance of signing it. I think both these guys will sign their deals, but as of right now, it is not official, although it definitely seems likely. But getting into it now here, and getting into the actual video here and taking a look at each individual prospect here, starting off with Gabe Perreault, though, the top forward prospect and top prospect for sure in the New York Rangers system. I think out of all the prospects, he definitely has the highest ceiling, which, could truly be a kind of top line elite winger at the NHL level. He definitely has that kind of talent. Now, can the Rangers do what they haven't been able to do much and kind of actually develop this player into his kind of true potential? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, they have been able to kind of get a guy like Lafreniere to kind of turn things around, and obviously Kakko, but we still haven't ever really seen them, get these kind of truly elite prospects to their actual kind of highest potential there, right? A guy like Kakko and Lafreniere, and even some other guys as well, haven't quite hit their, I would say, true ceiling. And even a guy like, K'Andre Miller, obviously, and a guy like Braden Schneider, and there are countless other guys as well who maybe didn't quite hit their absolute ceiling. I mean, a guy like Hedl, you could say probably, definitely got about there, but most other guys just haven't quite gotten to that true kind of peak that they could possibly be at potential-wise, and I am hopeful that Gabe Perreault will get there. I think he is, a different prospect than most of the other guys there. Obviously, isn't quite as hyped up as guys like maybe Kakko or, obviously guys like Lafreniere were in their draft years. But Gabe Perreault has definitely, soared up the rankings since being drafted, in the later part of the first round, which by most accounts there was a little shocking. So I think he's been an absolute steal, obviously. Yes, he has absolutely every little bit of talent in the world, but it's kind of about, is he physically truly ready for the NHL and pro hockey? And also, can the Rangers put him in the right spot to actually succeed? And with him signing that entry-level contract, which it's highly expected he will, all signs are pointing to him probably playing, at least a couple games here potentially at the NHL level and making his NHL debut this season, which would unfortunately mean that the Rangers will be burning 1 year of his entry-level contract, meaning if he signs that 3-year deal, it's really going to come down to a 2-year deal basically because, there's only, less than 10 games left in this season. So it would be unfortunate there that you're pretty much burning, 1 year of his NHL contract right now, which it's not the best thing in the world for the Rangers, and maybe not even for Gabe Perreault as well, because I do think that, him going down to Hartford for the rest of the season here to kind of, get some pro games in there, get used to playing against kind of pro, fully grown men there who are absolutely, jacked there. A lot of those guys are super strong, obviously, a lot stronger than a lot of the guys, in college hockey. So I think that physicality is definitely the big question mark with Gabe Perreault's game. Everyone knows he has a talent there, but is he quite ready to play at the pro level physically? That is kind of the big question mark right now. But if he is, the sky is truly his ceiling there. I mean, he can be an absolutely elite, 100-point kind of guy at the NHL level. He's got that kind of talent there, the playmaking, the vision, the offensive hockey IQ there. Just, he knows where to be without the puck, with the puck. He can shoot. He can do everything pretty much offensively. And with him having some of the leverage as well, with him being able to possibly make the threat of, hey, I'll go back to college hockey, let's say, or something like that, it does kind of make things a little harder for the Rangers to try and not burn that 1 year of, his entry-level contract, which would be ideal, I think, for both sides there to get him some time in the AHL, but maybe he can take that step right into pro hockey at the NHL level and actually be able to get the job done there. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but I definitely personally think, him going to the AHL for the rest of this season there and then probably, continuing on into the NHL next season is probably what's best. But obviously, I'm just talking here. I'm not, a scout or, a coach or anything like that. So I definitely don't have a say. But obviously, that's kind of my personal opinion. But now talking a bit about Drew Fortescue here, who I truly do think is right now the top defense prospect in the New York Rangers system. Now, yes, they did recently draft that first-round pick, defenseman E.J. Emery in this past draft, who I think is definitely a solid player and, a solid prospect there with some definite upside. But I think when you take a look at kind of Drew Fortescue's game there, kind of what he's been able to do, playing for Team USA at the World Juniors and also in college hockey, I think he has definitely been quite underrated and is obviously a really solid kind of defensive guy as well, which we know this team could use more of. He's not necessarily the most physical player in the world, but he's not too bad there at all, has some decent size. And although the offensive numbers definitely don't jump off the page there, having, last season 8 points, 4 goals, 4 assists in 40 games played, and then this season 11 points, all assists there in 36 games played. Those numbers don't necessarily jump off the page. Not terrible, but definitely don't, really aren't like eye-popping. But this is a guy who definitely is a very good breakout passer, which I think is something that the Rangers could definitely use. I mean, this is a guy who I kind of would like to see alongside Foxy on that top pair eventually, whether it is, next season or in the future. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Drew definitely has the upside to play alongside someone like a Foxy there and kind of complements his game quite well with, Drew being more of that defensive guy who definitely can break out the puck there, play a decent kind of physical game, but is just going to be a really reliable kind of defensive guy and just not make too many mistakes in the defensive zone and, can definitely make those breakout passes and move the puck, which I definitely think would be a big plus to add for this kind of New York Rangers defense core, which kind of lacks a guy like this who not only can bring a little bit of size there, can definitely bring, a decent kind of puck-moving game, but also is just a really good, reliable defensive defenseman. Now, he can contribute a little bit offensively, but he's definitely a defensive defenseman, I would say. The odd time here and there, sure, he's going to produce some points, but for the most part, he's going to be a good, reliable defensive defenseman that can shut things down defensively and move the puck, which is exactly what you want out of a guy who could potentially, play alongside someone like an Adam Fox or on that top pair. I definitely think that could be a potential good pair. Whether it happens, next season or maybe 2-3 years down the line, we'll have to wait and see, but I definitely think that could make sense at some point in the future with kind of the way Drew could complement Foxy's game. And I definitely could be wrong. Maybe things do change. But as of right now, as of recording this video, my guess is he will not play in the NHL. If he does sign his contract, which I expect him to do, he'll probably go to Hartford, I'd imagine, with all of the defensemen the Rangers do have. And although I definitely would not mind seeing what Drew could do there, because I think he could definitely be potentially more NHL ready than a guy like, Gabe Perreault there. I'm not saying he's a better prospect necessarily, but I think Gabe is maybe not quite as NHL ready, especially physically, than a guy like Drew Fortescue is potentially. So maybe we do see him, end up taking that step to the NHL, but I highly doubt it there. If, Drew does sign his NHL contract in the next couple of days here, I would imagine he will join Hartford, which would not be the worst idea at all. To get him some experience in pro hockey, maybe can be a bit of an underrated kind of guy to possibly make the NHL roster for the 2025-2026 season. But anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed it, definitely don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video, on these two prospects. Do you want to see these guys, make their debut in the NHL this season and burn a year of their contract, or you'd rather see them wait? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Which prospect do you like more? And do you think, Drew is the top defense prospect in this system currently? Do you think it's E.J. Emery? Let me know your thoughts on that. And I also, like I said, I do apologize for having to record this video in a different spot there. Haven't had power, so obviously no Wi-Fi either, which definitely is not the best. My data is not working either, so things are not looking great, but obviously I still want to get a video out for all you out there. So thank you all for watching. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.